a group of historians have come out in the 1970s, chief most among which was Patricia Kroner and Michael Cook. And Kroner, she wrote a book called Hagerism in the 1970s. And in this book, in the first instance, she actually was making the claim that the Prophet Muhammad doesn't exist.
And that is completely wrong, right? So here's Patricia Kroner and Michael Cook, 1977. The account, this is from Hagerism, the account we have given of the origins of Islam is not one which any believing Muslim can accept, not because it in any way belittles the historical role of Muhammad, but because it presents him in a role quite different from that which he has taken on in the Islamic tradition. And then 3 years later, Patricia Kroner reiterated, there is, of course, no doubt that Muhammad lived in the 620s and the 630s AD, that he fought in wars, and that he had followers, some of whose names are likely to have been preserved. And then 3 years after that, Michael Cook reiterated, and so the 1980, that was in Slaves on Horses, and now in 1983, this is Cook's book, Muhammad, his biography of Muhammad. Quote, it precludes any doubts as to whether Muhammad was a real person, unquote, right? So this is completely unambiguous. If you actually read Patricia Kroner and Michael Cook, not later on, but in Hagerism, in Slaves on Horses, they're absolutely clear Muhammad existed, right? And so now, so why do people so often say, oh, Kroner and Cook said Muhammad didn't exist? I've heard that several times. This is not an isolated view, right? So why do people say this? Now it might be like, maybe Kroner and Cook, they only mentioned this like it's buried in an obscure footnote, right? Like it's somewhere in the footnotes in Hagerism, or it's buried in chapter 20, way at the back. So no, this is from the introduction. They say this in the introduction to Hagerism.